Hello, and welcome to this video presentation, in which we will show you how to link a database to a Subversion repository. We'll explain several situations related to the linking process that depend on repository specifications and the protocol used to access the repository. In this video, we will describe all supported protocols: file, HTTP, and HTTPS. In addition, we will show you how to link a database to a local and online Subversion server. First, we will show you how to link a database to a Subversion repository hosted by the local file system. In this example, we will use the Tortoise SVN application, a free Subversion client that integrates into Windows as a shell component. This means that a folder on a local file system can be created and, in a few clicks, initialized as a Subversion repository. Let's create a local Subversion repository. After installing the Tortoise SVN application, there will be additional commands for creating and browsing a local Subversion repository in the context menu of the local file system. Create a new, empty folder and be sure it is not write protected. We will create a folder SVN1 and right-click on it. Choose the Create Repository Here command. The Tortoise SVN application gives you the ability to create a folder structure right away, with subfolders, branches, tags, and trunk. Since we do not need this folder structure for this example, we will click the Start Repo Browser command. As you can see, the Subversion local repository is created. Now, when we have a local Subversion repository created, let's link a database to it. The first step in linking a database to a Subversion repository is to start the source control wizard in Apex SQL Source Control. To do that, right-click on the selected database in the Object Explorer pane, and from the context menu, click the Link Database to a Source Control command. This action will open the Source Control wizard. Under the Connection Type tab, choose the Native option, and from the Source Control System drop-down list, click the Subversion item. Whatever settings you choose under the next three tabs, Development Model, Object Filtering, and Script Options, will not make any difference to the linking process to a local Subversion repository. So, we will skip them and jump to the last tab, the System Login tab. Here, you have two subtabs, HTTPS and File. Select the File subtab. As you can see, for the file protocol, the username and password are not mandatory. If, for any reason, a folder initialized as a Subversion repository requires authentication, such as a network drive that is password protected or a Windows basic authentication is set that requires the user to provide a username and password, this can be achieved by simply providing the username and password. Since we do not have any special request regarding authentication, we will leave these fields empty. Enter the repository path. This is the path to the local Subversion repository we created earlier. In the Project field, specify a separate folder inside the repository where each database will be linked. To manage projects inside the repository, create and delete, use the Browse button, and in the Choose Project dialog box, click the New button and enter the project name. We will create the AW1 project. After everything is set, click the Finish button. When the linking process is done, you will have a database linked to a local Subversion repository using the File protocol. Besides the File protocol, Subversion repository can be accessed over HTTP or HTTPS protocols. For the following example, we will use Visual SVN as a Subversion server that we installed on a local Windows machine. We already created the SVN1 repository on the Subversion local server. Let's link the same database, AW1, to the newly created SVN1 Subversion repository. Since all the necessary steps in the Source Control Wizard were already explained in the previous example, now we will make sure that the Subversion item is still chosen under the Connection Type tab and jump right to the last step, the System Login tab. This time, we will choose the HTTPS tab. Depending on the authentication settings of the Subversion local server, Subversion or Windows Authentication, A username and password may or may not be required. A Subversion server can have its own authentication, which requires a username and password for each user, independent of Windows itself. Since we set the Subversion authentication for this server, we must enter the username and the password. If the username and the password is required and you do not provide them, or provide the wrong ones, when you click on the Finish button, this information message will appear. The repository path is the next required information. Let's first use the HTTP protocol to link a database. You can set the type of connection on the Subversion local server, and we first choose the HTTP connection. Copy the URL of the created repository, in our case that is the SVN1 repository, and paste it in the repository field. Click the Browse button to choose one of the existing projects or create a new one. We will create a new one, AW1 repository. When everything is set, click the Finish button. After the linking process is complete, the Action Center tab will open, which means that you successfully linked a database to a local Subversion server using the HTTP protocol. If you choose to use the HTTPS instead of HTTP protocol, nothing will change in the linking process, only the URL of the repository will be different. For the Subversion local server, we will change the connection type from HTTP to HTTPS. When that is done, we will copy the new URL address to the SVN1 repository and enter it to the repository path. We will choose the same project, AW1 repository, to link the AW1 database to it. After you provide the necessary information, click the Finish button. When the linking process is completed and the Action Center tab is open, we will have a linked database to the Subversion local server over the HTTPS protocol. Similar to any other source control system cloud service, when creating a Subversion repository in the cloud, credentials used to log into a cloud portal are about to be used in the system login step as credentials for a Subversion repository, unless other methods are explicitly specified by the Subversion cloud service. For this example, we created the Subversion repository on cloudforge.com and provided the URL address to it. Let's now link the AW1 database to this repository. We will use the HTTPS tab again, and in the username and password fields, we will enter the credentials for login on the cloudforge.com site. In the repository field, we will enter the URL which we copied from the website, and we will create a new AW1 repository project and link the AW1 database to it. After everything is set, click the Finish button to link the AW1 database to the Subversion server online. When the linking is over and the Action Center tab is opened, you will have linked the database to the Subversion server online. Thanks for watching. For more information, please visit apexsql.com.